The film opens with the American Delta Force retreating from their rescue mission after a helicopter crash. Among the force is Major Scott McCoy, who rescues a comrade named Pete from the crash because how else is he getting that promotion? He carries him on his back and returns to the plane. As they take off, he tells Colonel Nick that he's resigning from the military because they do not care about the safety of their soldiers. The film fast-forwards to the year 1985, with the story now set in the airport of Athens, capital of Greece. Two suspicious-looking men make eye contact and immediately give off bad guy vibes. We then see some Americans in the waiting area, getting to know each other as if they're on a game show. This airport is so loose that a guy poses as a plumber and strolls onto a plane, whereas today, we get cavity searched for wearing metal-framed sunglasses. The staff finally arrives in the plane before the passengers. The suspicious plumber begins to sweat as he quickly hides 2 grenades in the tissue paper slot along with other guns. The stewardess, Ingrid, approaches him, but he leaves before she suspects him. In the meantime, the suspicious men at the airport involve a third party to distract the security and get away without being checked. Things work out for the bad guys as smoothly as if they're on a Mr. Bean episode. They board the flight, where the senior pilot, Captain Roger Campbell, welcomes all 144 passengers and tells them that their flight will make multiple stops before its final destination. As soon as the plane takes off, one of the suspicious men goes to the bathroom and retrieves the weapons the plumber had placed earlier. It turns out he and his partner are Lebanese terrorists named Abdul and Mustafa, who are about to hijack the plane. A kid witnesses them hiding their guns and tries to warn his ignorant parents, but they ignore him as if he's asked for another juice box. The terrorists suddenly rise and make everyone aware of their presence. The staff and the passengers become petrified and submit themselves immediately. Abdul and Mustafa threaten the pilots to open the cockpit, or else they'll blow up the plane with their grenades. I hope they soon realize they're on the plane as well. The pilots unlock the cockpit and submit to them. Abdul tells Roger to reroute the plane from Rome to Lebanon. When the pilots reroute the plane, they sneakily activate the emergency beacon. The Athens airport tower gets alerted and contacts the American embassy to update them on the hijack. The news reaches the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The Army personnel also gather to discuss the crisis, as nothing solves terrorism faster than a group PowerPoint. General Woodbridge reveals that the U.S. president wants them to send a Delta force to urgently rescue the hostages. Here come more expendables on the taxpayers' money. Hence, Woodbridge calls Colonel Nick and orders him to hold out for a rescue operation. Back in the plane, the terrorists introduce themselves properly, revealing that they have risen as an organization that opposes American imperialists, Zionists, terrorists, and any other anti-socialist atrocities. They now order other ethnic groups to separate themselves from American passengers. A Hebrew woman named Sylvia begins crying after realizing her jewelry outs her as Jewish because nothing screams low profile under threat like wearing a full Tiffany catalog. Meanwhile, Scott finds out about the hijacking through the news playing on his TV. Mustafa segregates the men from the women and orders them to take the window seats. Scott has a change of heart and returns to the Delta team. On the contrary, the terrorists move all the passengers and staff to one compartment, which gets crowded. At night, Nick's team members arrive at the Air Force base to carry out their rescue operation. In the meantime, Abdul orders the hostages to shut the blinds of the windows. During this, Mustafa finds Sylvia's purse in the first class. Upon checking it, he finds the Hebrew ring, so he alerts Abdul. The two force Ingrid to check the passengers' passports to find the Israeli on board. She does as they say and makes the staff collect everyone's passports. She becomes fearful of what might happen next when she collects the passport of an old man who has a number tattooed on his arm, meaning that he's Jewish. 3 men get targeted for not having passports because they're in the Navy, who only carry their IDs. Upon checking their IDs, Abdul declares them heroes and puts them in first class. When the terrorists force Ingrid to separate the Jewish and Israeli passports, she refuses to do it. She reveals that she's a German herself whose PTSD will be triggered. Abdul apologizes to her for feeling this way, but simultaneously inclines her to separate the passports. It's like saying sorry while stabbing someone in the chest. Contrary to Abdul, Mustafa crashes out and reminds Ingrid that the Jews are no better, as they've terrorized the entire Palestine. The Marine boys intervene with their insults, so Mustafa gives them a beating. This time, thank you for your service. Hits different. Scenes cut to Scott, who arrives at the base and joins his old team. Together, they board a military plane and head for the rescue operation. The terrorists finally make Ingrid enlist the Jews and Israelis, who are called into the first class. A priest also volunteers, claiming he's Jewish as well. As they prepare for landing, Roger gets in touch with the minister. He informs him about their landing in Lebanon. On the other hand, Nick divides their team into 3 sections. He asks Scott to lead the first section and lays out the entire rescue plan. When they land in Lebanon, the military is already waiting for them. Inside the plane, Sylvia and other families are seen sweating and worrying about their partners, from whom they've been separated. The segregated minorities are dropped off at the airport, while more henchmen from Abdul's organization board the plane. They're acting like it's a free joyride to Disneyland. The minorities are captured and taken to a military-controlled area where they're locked up. Across from their prison is a church, where a priest is an Israeli agent who uses secret radio communication to alert the Israeli intelligence. The radio communication somehow seems more reliable than the airport Wi-Fi these days. The Delta Force receives a tip from the Israeli intelligence that the hijackers have departed from Lebanon and are on their way to Algiers. The Delta Force lands at the Beirut airport, where Woodbridge contacts them and tells them to sort things out by negotiating, as he doesn't want anyone hurt in this situation. By negotiating, he means kill anyone who jeopardizes their mission. Scott's section heads towards the hijacked plane. Nick negotiates with the terrorists and makes them release all the women and children hostages, which Abdul agrees upon. Once the women and children are safely sent away on a bus, Nick signals Scott to make his move. He later finds out from Ingrid about the minority groups being held hostage in Beirut, Lebanon, whom they'll kill if Scott launches an attack on the plane. Nick immediately hops on a vehicle and leaves for the scene, whereas Scott opens fire at the plane, only to discover there's an entire team of terrorists instead of 2 hijackers. They shoot back, due to which an entire jeep explodes. Nick arrives there and takes Scott away from there. As a result, Abdul shoots the Navy boy and throws him off the plane. He now forces Roger to fly away from there as if they have unlimited fuel to go around the world and moon. The Delta Force contacts Woodbridge, who finally shows his true colors and allows them to do whatever's necessary to bring the hostages home, which probably means killing innocents and calling it heroism. They arm themselves and head to rescue the minorities captured in Beirut, while the hijackers also land in Beirut and send the remaining hostages to the military-controlled area where other minorities are being punished for no reason. The militants at the monastery decide to double their guards. Abdul leaves with the military. Later, he raises suspicions about the priest and his church. He wants it destroyed, but the militants refuse to do so as they're on good terms with them. While Abdul visits the remaining Marine boys in prison, media surrounds the hijacked plane, on which Roger and other flight attendants are still being held hostage. Mustafa shoots at the media so they stay back. Scott and Pete land in Beirut airport, disguised as a Canadian news crew, which is the spy version of putting on glasses and hoping no one notices you're Superman. They unite with the agent priest and plan to rescue all the hostages. The priest leaves them in his van to equip themselves with guns and goes to the church to contact the Delta Force. Abdul and his men capture him from there and take him to their base. He comes to the balcony to signal Scott, but the terrorists push him off the balcony and come after Scott. They flee in the priest's van while getting shot at, making it the most biblical car chase since Moses split traffic on the Red Sea. While they shoot back and get rid of the jeeps, the Delta Force thanks Israeli intelligence and takes matters into their own hands. The Delta Force boards a sea vessel and rescues Scott at the beach. Now united, they plan on rescuing 60 hostages that are being held at a school. The terrorist must be in their right mind to pick a school for a prison. Now, the Delta troops head towards the school, where the guards alert Abdul of their arrival. Scott and his team scuba dive in the ocean to infiltrate a secret pipeline network, which leads them under the school. While Nick and the troops keep the guards occupied, Scott and his team bomb the tunnel and infiltrate the school, where they shoot all the present guards and rescue the hostages. Scott and his team stay behind to eliminate the terrorists. They shoot most of them inside the school. Scott finds 2 militants about to launch a bazooka at Nick's troop, so he jumps out of the window and beats them. Later, Scott and his troops force the organization to run to their second base, where the remaining hostages are. They blow up that base and rescue the hostages. They pursue the organization and shoot all of them in a prolonged pursuit. At the end, Abdul shoots Pete and gets away. Scott follows him into an abandoned house and fights him physically. The severely beaten Abdul attempts to shoot Scott, but he releases a bazooka from his bike's silencer, which blows up Abdul. Early morning, they unite the hostages outside a cotton field and sneak through the field to reach the hijacked plane, where they shoot the sleeping guards. After getting rid of all the terrorists, they load the plane and ask Roger to fly it to Israel. Scott is still left behind, who performs stunts on his bike while blowing up the remaining terrorist jeeps. Once he's on board, Pete says his farewell and dies. They finally land in Israel, where the hostages are united with their families. The film ends as the Delta Commandos board their military plane and head for the United States. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.